SD Productions presents Minimum Wage Sentai by Stephen Bove. Read to you by the author. Chapter 9 In My Real World. "Do it again," shouted Zordon, as he looked over a large simulation training room. The simulator was about the size of a small drugstore, but it would create realistic holograms that Hawkins could interact with. They could hurt him, but not kill him. They were practicing his skills at fighting Zorgans. Hawkins had been tossed across the room and was lying face down on his stomach. His mouth was beginning to fill with blood. Hawkins unclipped the clips on the side of his helmet and spit the blood out of his mouth. "No," he shouted as he tossed the helmet aside. "Just send me up and let me die already," he continued as he sat up against the wall. As he rested, the simulated Zorgan ship turned back into the black and green tiles that created the simulations. "Sir," shouted the young soldier as she entered the room. "They are moving across the Pacific Ocean." She had been talking about the smaller ships which had been abducting people. They had finished with North America days before and had moved on to South America. They were now moving towards Asia. "Thank you, soldier," said Zordan, as he turned and saluted the girl and let her leave the room. He then turned back towards the viewing window and looked down at Hawkins, who moved his tongue around his mouth and spit more blood onto the floor. He then coughed and sat up. He then coughed and spit up blood over the back of his right hand. He had risen his hand to cover his mouth. Hawkins may have been an asshole person, but he had manners. "You don't have to die if you can do it right," said Puppy as he hit the button allowing him to talk in the simulation room. Yeah. You want me to save all the smarties and then blow the ship up, I know." And he slowly stood up, leaving his helmet on the floor. "You never mentioned the rescue mission," said Zordan as he looked over at Puppy. "It was Amelia's plan," replied Puppy, who then walked away from the button. "The generals and remaining world leaders all loved it." "They are my people, my powers," said Zordan. "But it's my life," shouted Hawkins as he looked up. He had some ringing in his ears from the head trauma he had gotten from the training. But while changed, he still had strengthened hearing. If he had not gotten his head damaged earlier in the training, he would have been able to hear even things going on outside the Pentagon. "Can't I just skip to the montage and get this part over with?" he asked as Hawkins walked over towards the door of the simulator. "Montage?" questioned his mother as she looked at her son, who had then changed back into his normal human self as he exited the simulator. "You know, in movies, when a person can't do something, they train in a short montage and then get on with their lives and win or defeat whatever they are training for," replied Hawkins as he placed his arms behind his back and tried to stretch it out. His entire body was covered in bruises and cuts. The motto of the scientists that had created the simulator was, "It won't kill you, but you'll be surprised what you can live through." "This isn't a movie, Willie," replied Amelia, who placed her arm around her son, but he pulled away in pain. "Yeah, well, it sure feels like it," he continued. "Think about it." And he removed his shirt and showed all of the scars he had obtained over his career. "I was taken from the middle of a lunchroom when I was what?" And he stopped and thought for a second. "Ninth grade, by a beam of light, and taken to some alien spacecraft which had landed in the middle of the desert. And I was there with other idiot kids from the same school as me. Then we got superpowers, fought monsters, and got fighting robots." And he stopped and laughed. "I mean, come on. We have to be living in a bloody movie." And he walked away from his mother and towards the door to the office room which had been turned into a makeshift bedroom for him while he trained and planned to try to recover the abducted people. They even brought Hawkins' two cats to him. "Bloody?" asked Amelia as Hawkins closed the door behind him. "Since when did he become British?" She then walked into the meeting room and looked at the faces of all the confirmed people who had been taken. "For their sakes," she continued, "I hope you're right, Willie, about this being a movie. We could use a happy ending." and she walked out of the room and over towards another room where Zordan was sitting in. "So, you think your son can be a hero?" asked Zordan, as he looked at Amelia as she walked into the room. Zordan was sitting in a dark room Zordan was sitting in a dark room. The only light which was coming into it was coming from the window. "I don't think he is," she said as she approached Zordan. "I know he is. He has it in him when he's sober. He can do it. We just have to give him more time." "We don't have time," said Zordan as he opened a black laptop which sat on his lap and showed the ship's movements. "Once they're done collecting, we'll lose all hope of getting the Taken back. Then this planet is done for." End of Chapter 9.